Hello from Cambodia. I am currently in a tuk-tuk, which is a way of traveling around. I am on my way to meet Jesse. I met him first at a Christian business conference in Singapore, and I told people I was going to Cambodia, and people said I had to meet with Jesse. From what I know, he is an American who's lived in Cambodia for the past 10, 15 plus years, and he has a real heart for the Cambodian people. He started a company aimed around education. I think it's kind of like an education in a box where you have all the education material. You can package that and send that into the rural areas so that they can get an education tool, which is awesome. So I don't know much. I only talked to him for a few minutes in Singapore. So today we're going to meet him on location in Phnom Penh, which is a major city and capital of Cambodia. And we'll get to hear his full story. All right. Adios. Okay. So when we go, we'll cross over. Okay. We'll go, it's probably like 4 or 5 blocks up. It's on the main road up here. So perfect. You got a little bit of time, but hopefully no one snatches that. All right. So we'll go like so. That's it? Yeah, that's it. All right, hold on. Let me just do a little bit left and out.
Ladies up big now.
Yeah, like that. What a trip. Okay. All right. Well, I would say other than our brief moment of saying hello at the conference in Singapore. Yeah. I mean, because I was telling people, I was like, oh, I might go to Cambodia soon. And they're like, oh, yeah, you should talk to Jesse. Yeah, and we talked for like 2 minutes. Yeah, maybe 2 minutes. Yeah, 2 minutes. Yeah. And I was still like on the fence of whether I could go to Cambodia or not. Sure. And you're like, well, if you come to Cambodia, you just stop by. Yeah. And here I am. Yeah. And Phnom Penh. Hey, Phnom Penh is the capital, right? It is. Yeah. I wasn't sure. Yeah. So where are we headed right now? We are headed to a local coffee shop company here called Brown. But they just renovated a famous Khmer architect's house into a cafe. Very cool. Yeah. So a little Khmer history for you too. We'll go this way here. Okay, Khmer. So I've heard. Here, we're gonna go this way. Okay. So Khmer is basically. How do you spell Khmer? Is it Khmer? Okay, so that's like the. Could be Khmer. Yeah. Cambodian. Whatever you want. Yeah. Yeah. And we'll try not to get hit on our walk. Yes. Woo. Wow. Yeah. So you mentioned we'll try not to get this also snatched. Do you mean? Yeah. That happens sometimes? Yeah, fairly often. I mean, you still have, folks that will ride by on a moto and grab your phone out of your hand or things like that. Yeah. So just got to be careful. Because, I mean, you have to think about, the average wage for someone here is minimum wage is 160, probably average is $200-300 a month. So, I mean, snatching a phone from someone is probably a couple months worth of salary, right? So that's the part that I don't understand is, let's say, for example, they take my iPhone. Yeah. My iPhone's locked down. So it's pretty much useless to them. Yeah, and that's changed a lot now, so there's probably less of that. They'll still snatch it anyway in the hopes of grabbing an Android phone, or maybe you haven't had it locked down, right? So, it still happens all the time. Really? There's a Ferrari there if you want to. This happened yesterday. People were telling me I have to use the app Grab to get a tuk-tuk. Yep. So for the first time yesterday, we were at Central Market. And this guy just came to us and said, hey, we'll take you on tuk-tuk. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, well, how much? He's like, 10,000 riel. Yeah. Which is about $3, I think. 250. Yep. 250, okay. Yep. So he took us there. We're like, oh, this is great. Yeah. We arrived. And then he's like, I gave him the 10,000. And he's like, no, 10,000 more. Yeah. And I was like, wait, I'm confused. Yeah. So I was about to give it. And my wife's like, no, do not give it. Yeah. And so he went away. Yeah. We're like, what the heck? Yep. As we were walking into the Royal Palace, another tuk-tuk driver comes to us. He's like, oh, it's closed. 3:30. And we're like, oh, but on the website it's at 4:30. Yeah. And so I was just very confused. And he kept following us. Yeah. I'm like, so anyway, it turns out that it was not closed. Yep. So I guess what we figured out was he was trying to convince us to take his tuk-tuk to go somewhere else?
Yeah, yeah. They'd take you to the killing field maybe or somewhere else.
Okay.
Charge you a bit more just to go out there, right?
Right.
And then he'd eventually bring you back. But, you know, it's just a way for him to get a little more cash from tourists and things like that. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So those things are pretty common, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. But Grab is nice because you can it's fixed fee. You don't have to negotiate.
Yeah.
It's tied to your card or whatever, your bank, so you don't have to actually hand cash over if you don't want to. So
I can see why people were kind of suggesting
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is cool. I mean, like one of the things that people like about doing it this way is that they get to see the environment.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to kind of describe, but once you're in it, you just kind of get used to these motorcycles getting very close to you.
Yeah, you know, there's, I think when you first arrive, at least when we did, like, there was like a chaos to it. It felt very chaotic.
Yeah.
But as you spend time here, we always say, like, traffic is kind of like how they dance. There's kind of this smooth rhythm. Yeah. So everyone kind of flows in and out of the rhythm of traffic here. Yeah. And so once you're here for a while, you kind of just get used to that. And it becomes less chaos.
Yeah.
And more just kind of understanding the flow and rhythm of things. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
In Korean, there's this word called nunchi.
Okay.
And nunchi is the ability to kind of like read the room.
Okay,
see what's
sure.
happening.
Yeah.
Cool. That's what I was about.
Yeah.
So there's like this nunchi game where it's like you have to figure out what's going on before anyone says anything.
Yeah.
You just have to read the room. And as we were kind of on the tuk-tuks, and I mean, there's a signal here, a light signal here.
Yeah.
A traffic signal, but there's a lot of streets that don't have it.
Right.
So it's like playing the nunchi game. Like you got to just figure out who's going where.
Sure.
And there's like all these motorcycles, cars. You just figure it out.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Very similar. Very similar. So, yeah.
I said this is it.
No. We're still going.
Oh, still going. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have a lot of blend of like imported businesses like that, brands, and then, you know, local mom and pop places and stuff like that. This coffee shop is interesting because they were probably one of the first like Cambodia brand coffee companies to start up that really understood like bringing good quality coffee into the country.
Oh.
And so the three founders were educated in Australia and they wanted to bring back some of that coffee culture that they saw during university.
Yeah.
Back to Cambodia. So now these are everywhere in Cambodia.
Do you feel like there's a bunch of that where they go out, I guess it's like kind of like the diaspora, they go out and they want to bring things back?
Yeah, there's been a lot of that over the years. A lot of middle upper class look for scholarship opportunities and school opportunities here. So this is the brown here.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's around.
To show this.
So today.
All right. So here, yeah. This is cool. This is brown coffee.
Yeah. So this is just opened just recently. So this is Van Mollyvan's house, who's a famous Cambodian architect from the 1960s, 50s and 60s. He did like a lot of the national infrastructure here. So like Olympic Stadium and things like that. So he has a very distinct style. He kind of grounded like new Khmer architecture. So one of the founders of Brown is an architect. And so this was like a passion project, he said.
Oh, wow.
So it just opened. They even added a museum up top for Van Mollyvan's work and stuff like that. So this is a really cool opportunity. They were able to save the property from getting destroyed and restore it. So it was kind of a cool place to go grab a cup of coffee.
Let's check it out.
Yeah. Sadly, the museum's only open on the weekends, so
got it.
Yeah, but
wow, this is like very modern.
Yeah. So oh wow, AC. So yeah, big open spaces.
Yeah, wow, that's beautiful.
Interesting lines and stuff like that.
Beautiful. So today, wow. I think this is like the first time I've seen like modern architecture here.
Yeah, yeah. You want to sit inside in the aircon?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't matter. We can all sit outside. Whatever.
I don't think there's an upstairs. I haven't been upstairs. Something. Is there an upstairs?
Yeah.
Upstairs seating?
They have third floor.
Third floor. Okay. Do you want to go up and take a look?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay.
I haven't been up here yet, so.
All right. Well, let's explore together.
This just opened, so I've been really interested in it.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Woo. Interesting. I heard you say aircon.
Aircon?
Yeah, aircon.
Yeah.
What is this? Koreans call that too.
Oh, is that what they call it?
Yeah, they call it aircon.
Oh, funny.
And Americans AC.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're thoroughly Cambodian.
Oh, for sure. And I haven't been in a place. Oh, interesting. Oh, it's not like set up for seating or anything.
Oh,
I got a guy. Oh, because the exhibition is up here and stuff. Oh, interesting. I haven't been up here yet.
oh, very cool.
Oh.
So they do like art exhibitions here?
Yeah, and then they have all of his old like architecture drawings and models and things like that they put up here. So
Very cool.
yeah, he's got a very cool, unique style. He really defined that kind of Khmer architecture. But sadly, he ended up watching most of it. He destroyed.
Oh, how come?
Building new buildings, infrastructure. So they went through and, destroyed a lot of it. And sadly wasn't valued the way it probably should have been. But he died just not too long ago.
Oh.
Wow. Oh, how come? All right, where do you want to sit? There's a seat around the corner there or over in the corner over here? Stop. Bye. Okay. Oh, there was a seat there. You want to sit in the front corner?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But there, yeah, on the... See, we got that. Oh, no, I see. Yeah, over here. Over here is good.
Liking the trip so far?
Oh, thank you. I got a, was this banana? No.
It's passion fruit smoothie.
The family, they're liking it. I mean, yesterday we ate at a seafood restaurant called Nisat.
Oh, yes.
You know that place?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So it was good. It was really good. Good. I mean, on the pricier side, in I guess Cambodia.
Yeah. It's definitely for expats.
Yeah. It was good though. It was very good.
We have a lot of good food options here. That's for sure. Have you been to, where are you from originally?
So, yes, this is us getting to know each other. Yeah. We know each other. So originally born and raised in LA.
That's right. Okay.
So I grew up in the States and then we moved to Korea 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you been to Kung Fu Kitchen yet?
No.
Okay. Here. Okay. That's one to add to your list if you have time. Kung Fu Kitchen.
K-U-N-G.
Yeah. Like Kung Fu. Yeah. Kitchen. So they have kind of an interesting mix-up of like, I would say like some American Chinese elements.
Okay.
As well as just like some good like if you just like dumplings or anything like that, really good.
Okay.
And pretty cheap actually. So
Okay.
but they're kind of a small, they started with 1 or 2 locations and now they've expanded everywhere. Similar to like a Brown, right? Like it kind of took off and
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm very curious. Like the amount that I know of you is basically LinkedIn.
yeah. Oh, good.
So from what I gather, I think what I remember, you're American.
Mm-hmm.
So born and raised
In Seattle.
Seattle.
Yep.
Oh, very cool.
Yep. So West Coast.
So born and raised in Seattle.
Yep. Yep.
Your parents also, before then, they were in Seattle?
They were in Seattle. Whole life, kind of that northwest area. Go. Yeah, grew up in a small town. Wanted to get out of the small town.
Why so?
Just growing up in a small town, you feel kind of stuck and limited where you're at. So, like, I want to see the world where everybody knows each other. Yeah. So, grew up in very rural, very like we're kind of nestled up in the mountains. So, yeah, real salt of the earth kind of community, right? I wanted to see the world. I wanted to travel. I wanted to have adventure that my small town couldn't give me.
Do you remember like was there a singular moment that you're like, I want to get out of here? Or was it something just like a gradual thing?
I think it was gradually building to that, but there, like my senior year, when you're finishing high school, obviously you're like questioning a lot of things, right? Like, what am I doing with my life? Like all of this. And I was a big sports person my whole life.
Sports?
Football, wrestling, and then soccer. And I got a pretty bad injury after the football season, and then that really led me to this place of like going like, okay, like what else is there, right? And so I picked up an old camera that my mom had that I'd been looking at for years but never really picked up, like a film camera. Yeah, and started exploring photography.
Oh, very cool.
Which was a lot of fun, and I just enjoyed that, and so I ended up going to art school to study photography and design.
By the way, when we say photography, we don't mean digital.
No, it was all film when I was in film school. Yeah. So, yeah, from, yes, it's like a whole, I'm explaining it to my kids, like what it was like to like develop film and like, I had a camera and it was a big one and you had one shot, right? It was just a big sheet film, thing at school and stuff like that. So,
yeah. I took like I went to the same event I got into photography too.
Sure.
And so I took one of those classes where you pick the pictures and you go into the dark room.
Yeah.
And then you have to like, the chemicals and you do it in the right way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's somewhat like soothing.
Yes.
It's somewhat like therapeutic.
Yeah.
But also, you can't get too many shots. And the way you become a better photographer is you got to get a lot of shots.
Yes. And it also was, you think back and you're like, oh, that was a cool time to do that stuff. But then you also look at the frustration of it because you're like, you spend a whole day shooting stuff. You might have a few rolls, you develop them and you realize I don't have one shot that I need, right? Like I didn't capture, like they're all bad. And like in the age of digital is now we can just pull the trigger on everything, right? And shoot lots of stuff. But if you only have 32 on a roll, or 24,
you really have to think.
You really have to pre-plan out. And
it's just kind of like, it's a weird analogy, but while playing video games, there's like unlimited ammo. You don't really, whereas like if they limit you, you have got 6 in the chamber, and you're like, I'm gonna wait until I see the whites of their eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it is interesting how like this kind of connects like this broader topic of AI, but how people are worried with AI, with super intelligence always available, like a fingertip away or a tap away, that people are not thinking.
Sure,
they're not thinking. They're just like, because they've developed a habit where it's like, if I have a question, I'm just gonna go straight to ChatGPT. Whereas like if they maybe thought about it for like 10 more seconds, they probably would have figured it out.
Yeah.
But this kind of decreasing patience. There's a pro, which is, you get access to this super intelligence. The con is human behavior, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And this is conversations we're having at work and personally, but work too is like, that attention span piece. How do we enable critical thinking skills still? Like, how do you raise up a generation of people that will lose maybe the potential to have to think of those baseline questions themselves and really wrestle with those things? There's a lot of our ability as people in the development stages of life to wrestle with the greater questions of those, right? And so if AI is replacing parts of that, it'll be very interesting for like my kids' generation. Or our kids' generation, like how they start to process things as AI becomes more embedded in their day-to-day.
I mean, sorry, so I kind of took us on a detour. So art school. Yeah. Where'd you go to school?
The Art Institute of Seattle.
Seattle. Okay, I got it. Yeah. So whether was it good? Was it what you were hoping for?
It was art school, so I mean, it was what I was. It was the best fit for me at the time. I think one of the things that I realized was that university was not something I was interested in.
Really? Like, was that also a singular moment, or was it gradual?
It was kind of a singular moment of like being at art school and then realizing like, oh, no one really in this profession goes to university for this profession, right? It was a trade in the true sense of the word, right? Like if you wanted to work in commercial photography, you called up a commercial photographer and you worked for them for a number of years. That's how everyone in the business came through. So, right?
It's more of an apprenticeship.
It was more of an apprenticeship type thing. So, which was fine. You know, I went through it, I did it. And I realized though that one of the things I learned too was like the only markets to make any money in commercial photography were LA and New York in the States, right? Like, because if otherwise you're going to be a wedding photographer most likely or a portrait photographer.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, neither of those were things that I was interested in.
Okay, so New York is fashion.
New York is fashion. LA is like product, or
I thought like Hollywood or
Hollywood too, but a lot of product, right? Like a lot of product is produced, like commercials are shot there and things like that, right? So you're doing like, you know, catalog work and things like that. So there was just a lot of less opportunity in Seattle for someone like me that was really into like commercial photography, items and food and things like that.
Okay.
Like, you know, where, you know, you spend
I gotta get the lighting
6
right.
hours right on all the lighting and setting up the food photography or the watch photography or whatever that is to get that shot.
Apple, I think, does like a really amazing. I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't know who does it, but I remember kind of seeing like behind the scenes, but it was just like, yeah, they got the whole setup and beautiful.
Yeah. And I haven't stayed up with it, but like you see like now a lot of it's like robot arms and all this kind of stuff to do like a lot of the very cool movement and things. It's pretty awesome now. But so I mean, photography led me down that path. I always was into tech. I was a self-taught programmer in high school.
What'd you learn? Was it like C?
Back then, like Perl and like web technologies, right? So like Perl, and then I got into what was Adobe's thing? It was Flash, but their ActionScript was the language that they programmed in. So I did that for a number of years, just like as a hobby and different things, and then eventually, just through life, like I had an opportunity for interview at a tech company for a tech job.
After you got out of art school?
Yeah, this is probably 5 or 6 years after art school. So I went through art school and I was just working at a bank and just trying to live life. And so, I just got a job at a bank.
So So why did you go down that path as opposed to like you could have gone down the apprenticeship route?
Yeah, and I did for a season of life. So I moved to a small commercial studio that did book covers in Central Oregon. And interned for them, apprenticed under them for about a year.
Was it a paid apprenticeship?
Yes, partly. So I still had to work. So I got a job at a bank. So like it wasn't enough to like pay full-time wages, right? So they paid me, but like I also needed work on top of that. So I worked at a bank and then did that. And then it was in a place where snowboarding and skiing was really good. And so me and my best friend moved down there and we spent a winter being ski bums and doing that. So
what is a ski bum? What's your definition of it?
I mean, someone that just is doing whatever they can to get on the slope, right? Like, so we spent all of our money and all of our free time, snowboarding and just doing whatever. On Bachelor in Oregon, yeah, and doing whatever you could to get sick up there, right? So, and so I mean, the apprenticeship was awesome, and like I walked away.
You like it?
Yeah, I walked away from it going like, if I could do this for a time, I absolutely would. Like, if I could figure out a way to make this work, I would 100% do that. But I mean, there's so few jobs in that industry. They're so hard to get, and so like, it was just a matter of like, where can I find this work, right? yeah, so at that point, I was kind of lost for a bit. So I just, moved back to Seattle, continued working at a bank.
I know what bank it was.
Washington Mutual. Do you remember those?
I had an account with Washington.
Hey, yeah. So right before, I was part of all that stuff that went down with the collapse of the banking industry, right? Like all the subprime mortgages and all that. That was right at the end. I got out right before it all fell apart. So I was there probably 2004, 5 to 2007, 8, somewhere there.
Washington Mutual eventually, I think they disappeared or they got acquired by somebody.
Yeah.
I remember I had an account with them and they reached out. They're like, hey,
Yeah, I think Chase finally bought them.
No.
Yeah. So anyway, I was just doing that. So then I met my wife, and after not very long of dating, we decided to get married, and we got married very quickly.
How old were you and how old was she?
She was 20. I was 23. Yeah, we're very
That made you young.
yeah, really young. Really young.
Did you always want to get married young, or was this kind of just like?
No, but I think it was in the moment and all of that. So,
Is your wife American, Cambodian?
American.
Okay, I got it.
She's also from Seattle.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and through her brother-in-law, he was at a tech company. He was like, "Oh, like why don't you come work? We're expanding. We have a lot of jobs and stuff like that." So I got I interviewed and got like an account manager role at a tech company, doing kind of like customer support.
Yeah.
And then eventually like a tech role opened up internally, like a programming role.
Oh.
And so I was actually using ActionScript. So they were an ad company, right? So we did like early day ads back in the day. So like all those flash ads that like tracked you around the internet.
Like where would I see that? So I'm just like on Google.
Back then, well, it wouldn't have been Google then. It probably would have been. You probably would have been on Yahoo.
Yahoo.
And like seeing like a little square ad of like a car, or
You mean like the banner ads or display ads?
yeah, display ads and things like that, right? So we were a display ad company. So I got to use my ActionScript skills that I learned in high school to like get the job. So they gave me like a take home test to do. And I programmed some stuff and surprised my wife because she didn't even know I could program, and got a job doing tech. So that's kind of how I started in tech.
And this is around like 2008,
9, somewhere in there.
8, 9. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then what happened next?
Did that for a while, and we were just living life, right? My wife was finishing university. She was working on her master's in education, and I think probably we had always both wanted to travel and do work kind of overseas and different things. So she kind of came to me and said, kind of done with school at this point. Like, I want to go somewhere. I don't know where, but let's go somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah. And at that point, that's when we called up the first people we knew that lived overseas, and they happened to be here in Cambodia.
How did you know that?
They were through my wife's church. They were missionaries that she grew up with. She knew them from a long time ago.
Yeah. So just in your internal Rolodex, like, all right, want to get out of Seattle.
Yeah.
And you've been having this urge since a while ago of wanting to get out.
Yeah.
Like, let's do it.
Mhm.
And then she's like, oh, I know some missionaries in Cambodia.
Yep.
And they were at Phnom Penh?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So what happened? Did you like call them, email them? Like,
Yeah, because we're like, well, we don't know how you do that. Like, how do you do that? And so we just called them and we're like, hey, like, they're like, actually, we're, in Seattle getting, like, doing some support raising and doing some stuff. So why don't we grab a coffee? And
wow.
so, like, my wife was like, can we get a job with you? Like, we didn't know what that actually meant. And they're like, no, but you could come work for free for us. And we're like, okay, like, let's do that. So,
But how about the finances at that point?
well, I was still at the tech company. So I don't know if you remember, at that time, there was a really popular book going around called 4-Hour Workweek.
Is
Timothy Ferriss, yeah. And so I had read that. And so one of the takeaways from that was like figuring out how to get remote work, right? So I had started early. It was early. I was like one of the first early folks doing that kind of stuff. So I started conditioning my boss and managers. He had this theory of like this practice of like starting with one work from home day, like ask your boss for one work from home day, right? And then being super productive on that one work from home day. And then kind of using that as an evidence to kind of show that, hey, like I'm super productive at home. Like, let's make this permanent, right? So I was really into that kind of movement. And then my boss was into kind of 37 Signals, Jason Fried and all those folks, rework and all of that. So he was,
which is big on working remote.
Working remote or flexible, right? Yeah. Like doing your best work. Kind of wherever you are. And so I went to him and I was like, hey, like I'd really like to go fully remote. We're going to move over seas. We're actually going to go to Mexico for a bit, which we can get to, and then go to Cambodia. He's like, oh, that's awesome. Like, let me see if I can get that approved. And so he did.
That's a big blessing right there.
Oh, for sure. Like that was not common. That was not a common thing in 2008.
If he had said no, what would you have done?
I would have quit.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, so you were ready to go.
I was ready to go. And I think, and I just would have freelanced at that point too, right? Like I had done some like contract work here and there. And I was like, well, I could probably figure out contracting. So what ended up happening though, is that while we were going through this process of going remote and all of that, the company was acquired by a big multinational. And, so when that happened, we were like 2 weeks out from leaving. My boss comes to me. He's like, the new company policies won't let us do any remote work outside of the States. He's like, if you're going somewhere else in the States, it'd be fine, but they won't let you work. Lots of tax liability, stuff like that. So he's like, I can't do that. I was like, well, I'm already packed now. Like we're already leaving. So like I gave him my notice and I said like, I'll have to find some contract work or something.
Do you think that so you felt comfortable with that because you had done contract work before?
Yep.
If you had never done contract work before, do you think that you would have still been that confident that you can make money and then that gives you the confidence to actually go forward with this? But like a lot of people that I've talked with, this channel is called Learning Entrepreneur. And I guess the reason I thought about that is like what a lot of entrepreneurs that I speak to, they have a big imposter syndrome.
Sure.
Like, I'm not Elon Musk or whatever.
Right.
And I thought about that. I'm like, man, if that's a definition of an entrepreneur, there's like 5 in the world. Like, it can't be that definition.
Yeah.
So I'm like, screw it. I'll make my own definition. And I think my definition is if you're learning, because I think an entrepreneur is basically solving problems. You're just solving problems that people want, that people have pain points about, whatever.
Yeah.
So the starting point is you're just learning.
Yeah.
So I think an entrepreneur can be working at a job.
Yeah.
I think an entrepreneur can be out there, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most common things is that like, I meet a lot of people who have ideas.
Yeah.
They want to go, but they don't go because of some fear, because of like your fear of like, I've never made money. I've only known a job. How can I leave, Cambodia when I don't have money?
Yeah.
And yet like, it's almost like you had a vaccine, like a vaccination that prepared you to be able to like take the step. At least that's my theory.
Yeah.
As I was kind of curious.
Yeah. I think a lot of us in the entrepreneur space are a little crazy, right? And like, the framework I've always used, my wife and I have always used, is what's the worst that's going to happen? Okay. Because we come from this, and this is not, our situation is not the same for everybody's, right? We come from middle class working American families, right? So in our particular scenario, when we ask that question, the worst case scenario that we're going to have is that we run out of money and that I'm sleeping on my in-laws' couch, right? So we're not going to ultimately struggle for food or shelter at the end of the day, right? And so when we use that, so any of these decisions early on when we were looking at moving overseas, we kept coming back to this, okay, what is the worst case scenario for our family, which was just the 2 of us at the time. And it really was, I'd just be right back on my in-laws' couch without a job and like living out of their pantry, right?
That would terrify some people.
And
that would be a hell for some people. And it would be enough where they'd be like, no, I need to build up a nest egg or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is also the benefit of being young too, right? Like you have to remember we are mid-20s, right? So I think the benefit of that is that, the world was wide open to us, right? And
It's optimism.
there's lots of optimism there, and there's just less risk at that point, right? Like the risk factor for us is okay. So we're 5 years delayed in starting a career. We're 5 years delayed in like building the nest egg, right? Now, if you ask me now with 4 kids and all of the responsibilities I have, could I take that risk? I could, but it would be a much more calculated, different risk, right?
Yeah.
But I do kind of follow that. I do think entrepreneurs are crazy in some respects in terms of that risk piece. We're willing to take a risk at some point, right? We're willing to bet on something.
Yeah.
And and you have to, right? And that's part of it, right? And yeah.
I mean, I think that even people who do live a regular 9 to 5, you can't eliminate risk. Like, even if you're 9 to 5, you're like, oh, should I go after another job? Should I try to go after this project? Should I try to get a raise? Whatever. Like, it's all just calculated risk. Mm-hmm. It's just that I think that's like, that person's looking at your risk and they're like, that is crazy. And you're looking at someone else like, no, that is crazy. Yeah. And it just kind of continues. So it's all subjective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I think like there are some people who, like genetically, like I hear, like Elon Musk's probably one of them, was just the fear gene is off.
Sure.
There's another guy who, you ever hear of the movie Free Solo?
Yes.
The climber?
Yeah.
I think in the documentary in the beginning, they kind of talked about how like they did studies on him.
Sure.
And I think one of the studies was like, they flashed images of very like horrific pictures, like whether it's mutilated bodies or whatever, and engaging in the brain activity. And he had like no brain activity. And he's like, no, I'm good. And so it's just like genetically, there are some people who just don't have a fear gene. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. That is one thing. Yeah. I think probably the vast majority of the people who choose to go to entrepreneurship are probably not that. Yeah. I feel like it is terrifying, but there's not a lot of people that talk about it.
Yeah.
And so you just assume this other entrepreneur is very talk on it. And so it's just like, it's almost like everybody's going the same thing, but they're afraid to talk about this.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and even for us in our 20s, right? Like the week, or when I found out that like my work wouldn't do this anymore, I literally had a panic attack in the kitchen, right? Like I was on the floor grabbing my chest going like, what are we going to do, right?
Wow.
Because you make all those plans and then like it's completely gone, right? And so,
Wait, so like, was your wife there?
Yeah, she was in the other room. Yeah. So that was kind of a scary moment. But yeah, it was like this, and I didn't know what's happening, right? Like I didn't know.
Like you're kind of like
act. Like I was like, I realized after, like, oh yeah, like this is all the stress and all the worry and anxiety from this thing that we're about to do. That like, I feel unprepared for.
In that moment, when you were kind of on the floor, clutching your chest, like your wife eventually probably found you.
Yeah.
Where was she at? Where was her mental state?
I don't know. I think for us though, we just had this overwhelming sense of like trust in what we believed we were supposed to be doing too, right? So there was this outside of just like going for the work, like, as like Christians ourselves, we were saying, okay, like there is a greater purpose to what we're doing as well. So it wasn't just tied to the work aspect of this too, right? Like we also had this faith that like we were going to do this thing, that we were supposed to do this thing. Because however people want to phrase it, some people call it higher calling, purpose, destiny, whatever. We had a faith in kind of that, what was going to happen, right? Or that we were supposed to go do this.
Yeah, because I almost think like if you're like, okay, it's an arbitrage opportunity.
Yeah.
It's Cambodia. We're going to bring some stuff. Like we're going to try to make some quick money. And then if this falls through, I feel like then you're like, maybe I'll look for another opportunity.
Yeah.
But for y'all, like there was some type of like a bigger purpose.
Yeah.
That we need to be there, that God wants us to be there.
Yeah.
And even if, others that watch don't believe in God, either way, it's just this idea that there's a compelling force outside of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that you're like, so I think what's interesting is you did not fall into the category of you did not feel fear. You're like, I can't get a job. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like,
no.
But I think that is like a misconception of entrepreneurship. It's like, and then you were dealing with the fear.
Yeah.
And you fought through it. And one of the things that helped you was knowing that there's a higher power, there's a higher purpose of you going.
Yeah. Yep. And then the crazy thing about the whole thing is so I landed like a small consulting contract. I was like, okay, like this will kind of carry us through for the next, like, I don't know, whatever it was, couple months maybe.
What was it like through like a friend or a family?
What was it? It was, back then, and these sites still might be around, but there were all these like freelance sites, like, what was it called? Elance maybe?
Oh, I remember Elance. I don't think Fiverr was around.
Fiverr wasn't around at the time.
Craigslist was probably around.
Craigslist, there was some stuff, so I was like sourcing some stuff. So Elance was one of them where I got some small like little projects through, and then like most things, like some connection through someone was like, hey, I think it was probably a website or something like that. So I built like a website for them, and
so you put it out there that you let you start Cambodia.
And so the plan was we go to Mexico for a short period of time because we wanted to see, could we make the remote work thing work? And we had some friends in Mexico that were also connected to these missionaries. So the idea was we'd go take this program that they were running and like bring that to Cambodia. So cool. So it kind of provided a half step.
Yeah.
Because we could be on the same
program.
Yeah. So we could be on the same time zone. I didn't have to deal with all of that stuff and then go, okay, like then we could do that, right? Cultures are similar enough in the respect of like, it's North America. Like we're not that far from the States if we need something. So it was kind of a half measure.
Where was it?
Guadalajara.
Where is that?
Kind of so my Mexican friends are going to be upset with me if I get this wrong. It's been so long now. It's been almost 20 years. Hey, it's been a while. Okay. It's been a minute. Like west center. So like more towards the west, but not like on the coast.
I respect the fact that we both did not grab our phones. We didn't act anybody. We're just struggling through it because sometimes the struggle is big.
Yeah.
Dude, on the way here, I like to do like an intro video, like, oh, I'm going to meet Jesse.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned Phnom Penh. I think it's the capital. And I said it. I'm like, wait, is it the capital?
Yeah.
I just like, wait a minute. I've recorded this. See? Whatever.
Whatever. Yeah. So we went there, and then like 2 weeks after we landed, and we're there, and we're like just getting set up and running. My old boss calls me. He said, hey, like, we can't find anyone to fill your role. Like, we're really struggling. Because this is a time when, like, Flash is going out. Like, ActionScript is kind of like, iOS is coming out and killing it, right? So it's like...
Yeah, Steve Jobs had this big rant against, I hate Flash.
Yeah. So it's like this, it's that period of time, right? And he's like, look, we can't bring you back as like an employee. Like, the company policies won't work like that. But I can bring you back as a contractor. Yeah. So it was like, I figured out a way to bring you back as a contractor. So he sent me a contracting agreement that was basically my old job.
That's crazy.
But for more money because it was a contract.
Oh my God.
And so it was like, okay, like that was one of those reaffirming moments for us of like, okay, like we made the right choice. Like this is what we're supposed to do. Like we really, we did, we followed through and that was good. So
that's so beautiful, man. I think it's like, I think there are certain things like people want assurances.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to do something, I need to know that.
Yes.
And I think there is a beauty and a logic in having assurances. And you have 4 kids, you don't want to be like, I'm going to jump off the cliff. Let's see what happens. Like you have calculated risk. But I think there are times when you've done all the calculations you can and this risk has not abated. It's still there. And you're just like, you know what? I think we're going to take a leap of faith.
Yeah.
And you did. And this amazing opportunity comes out. Which, by the way, I did not know. I remember when I started contracting many years ago, I was like, aren't I just going to charge the same amount that I...
Right.
But I realized that contractors, they need to charge more.
Right.
Number one, they have to pay more taxes.
Yeah.
There's like self-employment tax.
Right.
But the second thing is at any point that job could go away.
Yeah.
So you need to have like buffer space.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a given, at least in the US, that you always charge like, it's like 1.5 or 2x what your normal hourly rate is.
Right.
Anyway, so you end up getting that.
Yeah.
And there's no way that you could have planned this. Another interesting point, I think, is that you could have, when your boss said that, you could have been like, F you, like, and you kind of burned it.
Totally.
Well, because
Totally.
it obviously impacted you a lot because you had a panic attack, and yet you somehow ended graciously or kept that connection.
Yeah.
And also preceding that was the fact that you had a great relationship enough where you did a good enough job and with excellence that he's like, can't call this dude. I need to get back to you. And he found the way for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it was huge, right? Like, I mean, he figured out a way to make it work. He advocated for me. Like, he made it work. And that was early days too, right? Like once a year I had to go back to the home office for, I forget why now, but for some reason, IT support and it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was before you could like do a lot of upgrade remotely and stuff, right? They had to swap out my laptop for a new secure one. I don't remember, but and so that started everything. And so when I got to Cambodia, we were like,
how long were you in Mexico?
I'm gonna forget now. I want to say 9 months.
Okay, so under a year.
Under a year. Yeah. It was really just to learn this program, see if this would work.
What was the program?
So the idea was the missions organization that these missionaries were under, they wanted to help college students in the U.S. experience what missions were like without going behind in their degree program.
Oh, okay.
Because what was happening, they noticed, was like a lot of young students were taking out, in the U.S., right, $60,000 in student loans to get a degree that maybe is in missions or something focused around that. And then they get to, the country where they want to work at, and they realize, I don't want to be a missionary. Like, I don't like overseas work. I don't like this stuff, right? So their theory was like, why don't they come live with us for 2 years? They can study remotely on their degree so that, and then they can make a choice, right? Like, this really isn't for me. Like, this is cool, but maybe this is like living overseas is not the thing for me.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it was a very cool program. And then they could go back and change, majors, because it was the first 2 years, right? So it was all their kind of, core math, science, all of that. So,
okay. I guess all you need is like an internet connection. And I think the bigger thing is you would need to get the educational institutions.
Yeah. And they had partnered with a bunch of institutions in the States.
I see.
Yeah. So it was So we went to kind of mentor and watch over the college students.
Yeah. Anything that stood out to you? Any fun memory or like thing that stays with you?
I mean, just being young and just being crazy, right? Like water gun fights in the house and, like that kind of
Super
stuff.
soakers?
Yeah, like that kind of stuff, right? That silly, stupid stuff that you do when you're younger and, you kind of sometimes forget about as you get older, right? Like all of that stuff was super fun.
Did this like less than a year time in Mexico? Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny and it's actually ironic that, these college students are doing this, but also you guys are doing this as well.
Yeah.
Like you're testing whether this will be a good fit.
Right.
And during that time, you and your wife talked and you're like, I think this is it.
Yeah, and that's not to say it wasn't without difficulty either, right? Like I remember crossing the border into Mexico and we stopped. My wife speaks Spanish, but I didn't at the time, right? And so we stop, I don't know, at a restaurant or somewhere, and I get out of the car and I'm like trying to order something. And I was like, I can't speak this language. Like, what did I just sign up for, right? Like we're driving across the desert and you're seeing poverty at scale for the first time. So
you had never been.
Well, I mean, I had been, but like, you're like, this is where I'm like, I've committed X ? Years to being in this place, maybe like either here or in Cambodia. And you're just kind of confronted with that reality of like, did I just make the worst decision of my life? Like, what did I actually sign up for? Because it's like you live in your mind for so long on some of these things. And we kind of build this romanticized idea of what life overseas could be like.
Yeah.
And
let's sure my wife is okay. No, it's not right. We call him back. Yeah.
Okay.
That is I want to dig into this moment a little bit more because I felt something very similarly when I went to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one thing to go visit, which we did. We visited Korea, and we're like, oh, this is like full of optimism, and then we're back to the U.S. and we're telling our friends about it.
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
And I remember when we actually arrived in Korea, it's this reality that like it was in the winter. The heating system wasn't used for several months because it was empty. It was ice cold, and I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like what have I done?
What have I done?
But for you, like, so you said you had somewhat been vaccinated in the sense that you got these experiences.
Yeah.
And this isn't like, I saw it on YouTube, like you had experienced it yourself.
Yeah.
But what was it in this moment trying to order some like, you know, Mexican food tacos or whatever that it like hit you? Because you knew logically that this is happening.
Yeah. I don't know. It was just this feeling of being overwhelmed and frustrated and confused. It was like this mashup of emotion I didn't even know I had, right? Of like, I don't know how to engage with you. You don't know how to engage with me. I'm seeing these things for the first time that I haven't really been exposed to before. Like you've been now put into a situation where you have no context for it, right? Like you have no way of like, what is the norm behavior here that I'm supposed to exhibit, right? Like if you go to a poor community and you're doing some sort of like food drive or something, which we did, like what am I supposed to do relationally? How am I supposed to talk to people? How am I supposed to present myself? Like culturally, what are those norms? Like there's all that kind of stuff that I was just as I think a, you know, rural American unprepared for. Like nothing in my growing up prepared me for that cross-cultural piece, right? And so that was a huge aspect of like, what did I just sign up for? Like I didn't realize the difficulty in overcoming the cross-cultural piece of like all of it, right? And this is before YouTube. You could go like see a million vloggers about like the culture, the people, the places, and things like that, right? Like YouTube was not really. That's how we got to Cambodia. It was mostly just meme videos, right? At the time, I think.
I think there was another element because had you done missions before this? Okay, so
Not really.
So you haven't really left America.
No, I had done like one small thing in Mexico before.
Okay,
But
so
not really.
So this cross-cultural part, like you had experienced that difficulty, but I think you said something earlier. You said, but it was almost like the finality of it. Like it was like, it's not like the other times there was an exit date.
Yeah.
I'm going to return.
Right.
So I can just kind of withstand it for a few more days or whatever.
Sure.
But this time it was not a few days.
Right.
The exit door was not right there.
Exactly. And it's like, this is my life now, right? Like there's that finality of like, that's a good point. It's the finality of like, this is it. Like, this is the thing.
But isn't that something that, so someone could have been like, but isn't that what excited you? Isn't that why you came here?
Yeah. And it's weird because it's both, right? Like you're excited, you're enthusiastic, but then it's so overwhelming, right? I remember walking around our first day or two, we had to go get groceries and we're in Walmart. I think it was Walmart. And we're frustrated in the aisles because we're like, we can't figure out how to find, I don't even know what we were looking for, beans or something, right? Like, I don't know, like, and we're on like our phone. Were we on our phones? Yeah, we were on our phones, early days of like Google Translate from Spanish to English, trying to figure out.
You can't take.
My wife's like, oh, I think the word is this, and you know, she's trying to ask the people, and you're trying to get directions, and you're just
Like charades.
yeah. And you've probably, I don't know if you experienced this in Korea, but it's like the normal, basic functioning things that we do in our normal day-to-day lives becomes harder. Well, and that's frustrating. If everything in that initial first phase is like, even shopping for groceries, which is a very basic, like, I just need to go in, grab the thing, and go out, became very frustrating and very overwhelming. I shouldn't even say frustrating, just overwhelming.
Yeah. I think it's like this whole, you know, I read this book on habits, and what a habit is, or at least the way this book defines it, is essentially there's some type of trigger and some type of action, and then some type of reward. So a trigger, I ran out of milk. Action, I go to the store, get some milk, I have the milk. That's a habit. And so what they did is they did studies on mice, And basically they found that your brain activity literally during the habit, it peaks at the signal and then it drops.
Yeah.
So your brain is conserving energy.
Right.
So you literally just are on automated mode,
Right.
automatic mode. So for you to basically, this disrupts it.
Yeah.
Like you're like, I need to go get milk. And you go there and you're like, it just stays up there.
Yeah.
And not only that, it goes up higher. Because you're like, I'm trying to.
Yeah.
And then I almost imagine like in those moments, you could start thinking about like, if it's this hard to do something this simple,
Yeah.
you start extrapolating to all the other things that I got to do, like get documents, like get car.
Yeah.
How am I gonna survive?
Yeah. Yeah. All of that, right? All of that piece of it in the early days, right?
Yep.
But ultimately though, there's that transition period where you start to come out of that.
Yeah. Now start telling me about that.
I don't know if we fully hit it in Mexico in 9 months, right? Like there's just, that's not enough time, I think, to like go through that. Mexico was wonderful, and we
learned the program.
We learned the program. We had great friends. Like part of the university program was like working with students at the Mexican universities too in Guadalajara. So we had great relationships with people there and made a lot of friends, and that was really lovely. So then we end up.
So you had already bought the ticket to go to Cambodia?
Yeah, so we went back to the States to just kind of wrap up a few things, and then for like a month or two, and then fly to Cambodia. So we had never been to Asia. I actually, when we first were hearing about Cambodia, I was like, I think that's by Vietnam, but all I remember is something about the Vietnam War in Cambodia. And so we had never been to Asia. We had never done like a trip to visit to see if it's a country we'd like to see or anything like that. We knew next to nothing when we showed up here.
Other than two missionaries.
Other than two missionaries that we knew. That was it, right? They were our people here that were like...
This is why you got to do these things when you're young.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're old, you will overanalyze it.
Yeah,
there we go.
Totally, 100%. I have a lot of credit. I give a lot of credit to like people my age now with families that do this kind of stuff. Because like we had it easy when we came because we were young and just... I always say we were young and didn't know any better, right? Like we'll just the
ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. So we get off the plane and like we're just bombarded with the heat and the rain. We showed up right in September, so it was like what year? 2010. 2010. Yeah, because this will be 15 years. So yeah, 2010.
Guys.
So you arrive in Phnom International Airport. Yeah, it's dumping rain, but also hot. So it's the first time I've ever experienced like the humidity of Southeast Asia. And, you know, we're at this family's house, and then the missionaries, we go to their house to stay.
Oh, so they're back.
They're back in Cambodia. And
how long had they been in Cambodia?
Long time. They had probably been there 15 years or something.
Okay, so they're very acclimated and everything.
Yeah, they're probably at the phase that I am now, I actually think. Oh, they're probably my life stage when we came. And
circle moment.
I have that moment regularly now where I'm like, I'm about their age now, I think. And
so you arrive at the home.
We arrive at the home, and it's just hot. Like that's the only impression that I have.
Inside the home too, it's hot.
Everything is just, you're just sweaty and wet all the time.
And no AC.
They had AC, thankfully, but still, like you walk out of it's just the room, right? So you walk out of the room and you're sweaty again. You go outside, you're sweaty again. And I was having a hard time acclimating to that, especially while it was raining, because it was like raining but hot. And that's such a weird, as someone from like Seattle, Washington, that's such a weird combination for me. And so
it's weird to be having an umbrella and you're sweating under the umbrella.
Yes. And this family they had a vacation plan, so they were going up to Siem Reap where the temples are.
Okay.
The next day, but they were flying, and so they were like, you can't get plane tickets this last minute, so we're gonna put you on a bus, and the bus will take you up to Siem Reap. So we are day number 2 here, like first full day here, getting on a bus from Phnom Penh, 8-hour bus ride up to Siem Reap where the temples are.
How was the bus?
It was hot and overwhelming, and it broke down halfway.
No.
And so it broke down midway. and it was in the middle, so they couldn't send a bus from either direction. Would have taken 4 hours for the bus. So we had to sit on the side of the road at some little Cambodian families, like little store front, and just sit with them and play with their kids for like 3 or 4 hours while we waited for this bus to show up, the second bus to come and collect us.
What was going through your mind at that time?
It was just like Mexico. I was like, what did I sign up for? Where am I? And what did I sign up for? And I still have these memories because this is when flip cams, do you remember flip cams came out? They were like those first like all-in-one like cameras you could carry around that were video. They were designed for like YouTube, right? They shot like 1080 or 720, I think, at the time. And they were real simple. Yeah. And they were fixed lens. Yeah. They had a little USB port you could plug in.
Yeah.
So we bought one of those and we started like, I mean, now it would be called vlogging, right? Like, but it wasn't that then. And so my wife and I recorded all these videos of us like first showing up here, doing the bus thing. And so occasionally we go back and watch them because it's just so silly to see us.
Did you put it up on YouTube?
They were on YouTube. I just pulled them down a while ago.
Oh.
I mean, I kept them like private, but like,
how come?
I think, well, I was trying at the time to change my channel to be more like work related and tech related, and it didn't really fit with like, but a couple of them are still up there. Yeah. So the bus comes and gets us and we show up in Siem Reap and like, it's flooding season, right? That's the entirety of Siem Reap is underwater. And so we don't have a working phone. And all we have is the hotel name that the family we're staying with is staying at and where we're supposed to stay. And it's called, I don't know, Angkor something hotel. Not knowing to us that just about every hotel in Siem Reap is named Angkor something or something, right? So we're trying to explain to this tuk-tuk driver where we're trying to go. And he's thinking of all the Angkor hotels that he knows.
It's not like Google Maps.
No, there's no Google Maps here. And so he's driving through these flooded streets. His tuk-tuk breaks down because it's so flooded. So he's pushing his moto with us in the back through these deep-watered streets in downtown Siem Reap, trying to get us to find our hotel. Oh. And we're just kind of, like, at that point, it's just ridiculous, right? We're at this point of, like, where are we and what are we doing with our lives? And so, eventually we got to the right hotel. Yeah, I think it was 2 or 3 stops at different hotels before we finally figured out the right hotel. And then, but eventually we got there, so. Oh, yeah. Well, that was our first
Cambodia
day or 2 in Cambodia, like just this epic failure of a trip.
I mean, thinking back, like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I love that I had that experience, right? Like, I love looking back. I'm like, it's such a crazy story. It's such a unique experience. It's the whole reason you do this life, right? Like you want to live for, like, I want to experience it. Like, if you're going to try to live and experience adventure, those are the types of things that are going to happen to you, right? It's not just a smooth sailing trip, right? Adventure comes through these weird circumstances, difficult challenges at the bus thing. Like, I have such an interesting story to tell about, like, sitting with those kids and playing with the water bottles as we threw the shoe at the other shoe game and all these things, right? Like at the other, like they play a game where they throw shoes, like they knock the shoes around, right? And so,
creativity,
yeah. And so, I don't know. Looking back, it's like, like that sucked. Yes, in the moment it sucks. But that's part of the adventure of all this in this life.
I read this this article or something. It was about like why experiences are always better than products.
Sure.
And so they're talking about, like, you get the latest iPhone, and you get a jolt of dopamine for a little bit, start sharing with friends, but eventually it wears out. Yeah. So, like, you got to get another dopamine hit. So you got to get another product. So consumerism. But he's like, with experiences though, with travel, specifically, it's the opposite. It's like you go there, you have this experience, like terrible experience. You can have an amazing experience, and when you come back home, because it's ephemeral, like, because you don't always have it with you. Yeah. It grows in whatever it is. Right. So it grows in fascination, and you tell your friends it's beautiful. Yep. But on the flip side, even if you have a terrible moment, you you can now look back and just, you're so fond of it. And so it's a win-win situation with traveling.
Yeah.
However, there is an entrance fee.
Yes.
The entrance fee is you have to be willing to, because there's two sides of the coin.
Yep.
There's amazing part, and you know that it's after the trip, good or bad, it'll be magnified, it'll be great.
Yeah.
But even knowing that logically, like, to take the risk to go out there,
Right.
you will never, it's this world of experiences that you can, and it's at your fingertip. You don't have to be rich.
Yep.
You can do it. The entrance fee is you have to take a next step.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And my wife and I have always had early on in our marriage, we always said experiences over things, right? So the types of things we would rather prioritize in our life is an experience over the gift of something, right? So holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, any of those things, we always try to focus on an experience rather than like a physical thing. And so we've kind of carried that through, I think, just a lot of life that we do in terms of like trying to have these adventures and things like that. So,
Okay, so what happens after that?
oh my gosh, you're pressing my brain now.
Or it doesn't have to be chronological, but just any significant thing.
I think at one point we came back to the city and we were working, my wife was working for their nonprofit.
So kind of allowing people from the U.S., students in the U.S. to come to Cambodia.
That was the aim. So we were planning for that because it had to go with the school schedule, right? But we were also working, she was working with the anti-trafficking organization. The NGO focused on anti-trafficking. So they were helping trash collectors in the city of Phnom Penh. They were looking after their kids because typically what happens is the kids would ride in the baskets with the parents as they collect trash around the city, putting them at risk for lots of things, but trafficking being one of them. So their focus was like providing a day shelter so all the trash collectors could bring their kids and they get food, showers if they needed them, baths, some education and things like that.
So that requires funding, though.
Yeah, the missionaries had the funding for that. That was through their organization and the things that they were doing. So my wife was doing that, and I was working remotely and figuring out what that looked like.
Oh, you were still, okay, still contractor work.
I was still contracting.
But the hours are flipped, isn't it?
Yeah, so it was, we worked out a deal. I'm trying to remember now. I had a call. I had to get up at 3 a.m, I think, and be on a call around 3:30 in the morning. So there was like an hour or two of overlap. There didn't need to be this big thing. And they were actually, my boss was pretty forward thinking in terms of like this, hey, we can do this like 24-hour cycle, right? Like he was very much like, as long as we have everything packaged and ready for Jesse by our end of our day, like he could just keep working. And by the time we get in the next morning, we have this complete thing. And it was really good. So, I mean, obviously there's hiccups in that process, right? If I needed feedback, I couldn't get it immediate, but we worked it out. So it was a lot of async stuff. So it was early days. I was very lucky to have a boss.
Very forward.
Yeah, I was very lucky to have a boss that was focused on that kind of things. Early days. But what I realized, so I started getting involved in the tech scene here. So I started going to some startup events.
Was that just like, what was the impetus of that? Because you could have stayed kind of isolated in your cocoon.
Yeah.
But yeah, like,
I was working on a few startup ideas myself at the time, right? So I wanted to see kind of what the startup ecosystem was like here. Was there a tech community? Like, what was that like?
Did you, starting when did you know that you wanted to be, like, was it like a early on, like, I want to be an entrepreneur? Or was it just more like, it just kind of happened when you were here? Like, how'd this work out?
I've always been entrepreneurial. I don't think, had you asked me, did I want to run my own business? Did I want to be a startup person? I probably would have said no for a long time. But like, I started a photography studio in high school, right?
Oh.
I started looking back in hindsight, I was like, oh, I started this business, then this business, then this business. All the way through like university, I was doing different things and all the way through. So I was always trying new things.
Did you think of it as a business at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I just never really put myself, it was just stuff I was trying, right? I wanted to make a living for myself. I wanted to have control over my schedule. And define things on my terms. And those were a lot of like driving forces for me early on.
Okay.
But I didn't think of myself as like an entrepreneur.
Why?
I don't know if I had the words for it at the time. I don't know. Like the people in my life weren't that. Right?
I'm about to ask, like, were there people in your life? So
No, it was a small town, working class, right? So my folks are of the generation you go work one place for your whole career, and you get a pension and a retirement, and you're set, right? And so I didn't have a lot of examples of like entrepreneurial mindset. My wife either, right? Like mom and dad were both career people, and you go one place, you work there forever, and you retire, which was fine, but that's just not how. Yeah, so I didn't have a lot of examples, so I don't think I had the words or framework to kind of put that into practice, I guess.
Because if you had a mentor at that time, they would have been, hey, you're very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And you'd probably be like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
I just want,
I'm
like,
trying all these different things, right? Like I see ways of making money, and I want to try these things. So like,
so you're here in Cambodia, and you're like, your mind is always like kind of working.
Yep.
And I would imagine, I think one of the benefits of coming to a place like Cambodia is like, I think in the US, it's more like red ocean. There's tons of competition.
Yeah.
Whereas in Cambodia, because you paid the admission of coming here, by virtue of that fact, there's not many people like you.
Right.
And so I think, and you'd see things a different way.
Yeah.
And so it's like, did that kind of lead to a lot of blue ocean? Like, hey, I can do a lot of new things.
Yeah, it opened a lot of doors for me, actually, right? Like,
Coming.
I think just showing up and having the tech background from the States, being at a startup, all of that previously, like just opened doors, because here people were hungry for that knowledge. They were interested in the story. So like it was easy to get in front of people here and talk to people and learn about what they're going through, or help coach people, or different things. Like if I wanted to go to an early startup event, I could pretty much just show up and be a speaker at that point, right? Because there just wasn't the community of that here yet. But they were very hungry for a kind of outside knowledge coming into the country.
How many people at that time were like you, who came from the States? Because, I think kind of what I've seen as I've been going to different countries is that the US is kind of put on top.
Yeah.
And then there's like Europe but
Yeah, and it's changed a lot over the last few years. But when I first got here, I mean, there were always a lot of expats here due to the like aid industry here, international development industry, a lot of UN stuff, a lot of US government funding and things like that. But in terms of the tech space, I mean, there weren't that many of us, 30, 40, 50 people.
out of, like, just for people to understand,
I have no idea. I don't even know how you quantify that.
out of just people, and I guess the population, I'm assuming over 100,000.
Oh, yeah, it's for sure. In the city, yeah.
So you are a tiny fraction, where if you see someone, then you're like, oh, you probably all get to know each other.
Yeah, and I still see people around from those early days, right? Like one of the first startups here was the Yellow Pages, of all things, right? And I still see the founders of Yellow Pages around. It's no longer around anymore, right? And they've left and come back a few times, but like we still see them around. You still see some of the early folks that were running around here at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you're like starting to go out to these startup events, and what's that like? And how is that like? And also, how was that also impacting you, forming your ideas of doing a startup?
Yeah, because I looked at it from a cost perspective. I said, okay, like outsourcing is becoming a big thing. You see the Philippines doing a lot of outsourcing at the time.
Oh, I see.
Other things. And so I was going to these startup events and just realizing how far behind the tech community was here from even just neighboring countries, Vietnam.
Like, could you give me an example?
Like everything that was being worked on at the time was, one, the tech skills were so far behind. Like you look at like what they were building and why they were building it, and it was like even the technology they were choosing was not very modern, right? It was like .NET and things like that. Or if you looked at like their ideas, a lot of it was just like, oh, like something from another country inputted here, right? Like there wasn't a lot of just like, hey, I had like, here's my context. Here's the problem I see. Here's the actual solution that I want to build. It was like, oh, this works in the US. Let's just build that here. And there's still that today. But then it was like, oh, okay, like it's very clear that this tech world here is behind significantly. This is where I'm from in the States, right? In Seattle. And so I started looking into why. So I started looking at the university programs that university students were coming through, things like that. And I really got to understand there weren't computer science degrees when I came, or IT degrees. So if you wanted to major in something technology related, you were getting an IT degree, which involved like mostly networking and hardware stuff. Some programming switches, some programming stuff, but not a lot. Cisco certifications and things like that, but not like there's very few like actual like computer science degrees. So that was a big problem. And so I thought, could I start a company here that one of the main goals of it was to say, hey, we're going to like really invest skill-wise into our software engineers. We're going to bring on people and teach them how to program with modern technologies, and design with modern technologies, design with modern practices in place, and things like that. So that was kind of the, original idea behind why I wanted to start a company here.
And then when did you actually end up starting it?
Probably about a year after we got here.
So that was 2012? 2012. Oh, wow. That was early.
2012. Yeah. 2012, 2013, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So you like incorporated and everything?
Yeah, we did everything. We didn't at first, I should say. I just hired a few people and we started just working on some stuff I had from the US. Like I got some other consulting gigs and I was like, well, I'll have the Cambodian team work on them and websites and things like that. Yeah. But it wasn't until sometime in 2013, I think we landed a large USAID tech project here, at least large for us, but it required that we were registered and like a legit company, right?
That's it.
So at the same time, I'm like negotiating this deal and signing the contracts. I'm like also registering my company officially so that we're like in compliance. So like, is your certificate of like registration coming soon? And I'm like, oh yeah, we're still getting it. Yeah, don't worry.
That's a perfect example of jumping off the cliff and building the plane as it's falling down.
100%, right? Like 100%. Like that's just such a normal like entrepreneur move of like, let's get the deal and we'll sort out the rest later kind of moment.
I think it's funny, like, because like some people, they would want all their ducks in a row. Like, I want to get all my, incorporation, blah, 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 blah. But I feel like for you, having been through those experiences in Mexico, having been through a broken down bus in Cambodia, it's almost like the risk profile has shifted for you.
Yeah.
And like this risk, which maybe a long time ago, maybe it was giving you a panic attack.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, you just experienced so much more.
Yeah.
That's like, you've been stretched more and now you can at least compare. You're like, this isn't that big of a deal. This is not that much of a risk.
Right. Yeah, because that Jesse, dealing with the government paperwork and all of that last minute, not really any issues like there, versus the Jesse that had the panic attack because he was moving overseas, or like Jesse negotiating with the taco vendor and being overwhelmed because he couldn't figure out how to like communicate, right? Yeah. The big differences just in that short period of time too, only a couple years.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that really, I resonate with that because I think like when people ask me like what's like in Korea, I would say it's different challenges. Sure, it's not. I would say they're well developed, whatever development. But I think it's different challenges, and I feel like I've grown so much.
Yeah.
And I think the only way that you could grow that fast is it has to be through pain.
Yeah.
Massive amounts of pain.
Yeah. It's a hard thing, if you're talking about leaving the culture that you know and grew up in to experience something new. There's going to be pain with that, right? There's going to be learning and challenges and difficulties, but I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't trade it. Looking back, I wouldn't trade any of it away, right? Like I wouldn't, like these experiences are amazing. And now it's the life I get to give my kids too, right? Like there's this other beautiful piece of it too, of like, I get to have my kids experience this wider world than they probably would have experienced that in the way that I grew up in this very small town, right? Being in Southeast Asia is cool because we're so close to all the neighboring countries, So they get to travel a lot, right? They get to visit Vietnam. Right?
So I'm assuming you visited Vietnam,
Thailand, Malaysia. Those are kind of the main ones. I mean, most of my kids were born in Thailand, right? So Thailand's a real special place for us. Actually, our fourth was just born 3 months ago there. So
Oh wow.
yeah.
Okay. So tell me about this. Okay. So you started this company.
Yeah.
2012, 2013.
Yeah.
Hiring people. USAID. By the way, USAID is in the news. Yeah. Like task with the whole Doge thing. But I don't think a lot of people, like even me,
No.
I don't really know what
Yeah.
USAID is.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is one of those things that was really interesting to me because I've worked with USAID forever, right? Since 13. So, but whenever we go back to the States and talk about it, no one knew what it was or what it was doing. And most people didn't even know we had a foreign aid arm that funded things overseas like that. So, I mean, yeah, USAID really is the U.S. government's foreign assistance fund. So they use it to fund initiatives in different countries around the world.
So I imagine it's not, part of it is, want to make the world a better place, but I think part of it is probably strategic from a government perspective.
Absolutely. A large part of it is politically motivated, right? Strong democracies, governance, rights issues, things like that. So the U.S. government funds a lot of work in those spaces with the premise of it being American values, right? And like, we want, freedom of the press, freedom to choose rights, democratic governments around the world, things like that. So it's used a lot as a soft power tool to fund different initiatives around the globe. So,
But I'm sure, like with all organizations, there are parts that are legitimate and doing great work.
yeah.
There are other parts where probably valid, but like I said, it's pretty much all organizations have this.
I mean, and we're talking billion, USAID is like 1% of the global or the US budget, right? On average per year. It's still a lot of money, like billions of dollars, right? Any organization that's from the government is going to have lots of bureaucracy tied up in it, right? And so, there for years and years and years have been pushes to reform it into a way that was more effective, right? So there was a lot of bloat, a lot of contractor bloat and things like that as well, too, right? So if you talk to anyone that worked in the aid industry for very long, they will quickly say, yes, obviously lots of opportunities to fix it, right? So, for years, basically, we focused a lot on one of the only main sources of revenue here in the country was through NGOs, nonprofits, UN government agencies, or foreign government donors like USAID or Australian aid or the UK's arm, DFAT, DFID. These are other kind of similar to USAID ways of funding things. All of them have their own focuses and initiatives, but the U.S. being the U.S. has had a strong tech emphasis, right? Really kind of this, hey, can we take Silicon Valley mindsets? Can we help other countries kind of adapt these things and grow these things so that there's more of an American style emphasis on the tech space in these countries. So we did a lot of work in that area for a number of years.
So interesting. So the kind of main source of revenues were outside of Cambodia, bringing money into Cambodia.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it was already coming in Cambodia.
It was already coming in, yeah. And a lot of it was through local NGOs, right? So they'd fund a local nonprofit to do a project.
That's it.
Like an education tech thing. And we
I was about to say, we can give an example of
one of our big ones is that we build technology for rural schools. So we provide offline tablets and hardware that goes into a school so they can have a digital learning system for English learning or math learning to supplement.
Yeah, I mean, tell me about that. What kind of what's the context and what that's obviously the solution, but what is the kind of underlying problem that you were trying to solve about this?
Yeah, I think growing up as a technologist and someone that was always interested in technology, strongly believe that technology provides opportunity. If we look at society largely now, we've largely all become tech-based societies. You look at Cambodia, most commerce is done on the phone now. Facebook Marketplace. Like I just paid for coffees using a QR code and scanning it on my phone, digital banking that way, all of that. So the premise here that the thing that I recognized is that there's all these rural schools without access to the internet. There's all these rural schools where they don't have access to any computers or technology. If that continues on and the pace in which Cambodia is progressing, those people are going to be left out of the next economy in country.
What did that look like to be left out? Like, do you mean like they'll just eventually move to a major city?
Even if they move to a major city, can you imagine not knowing how to use, how to transact? Like if you function solely in cash in the province, and then you show up into a city when you ultimately urbanize because everything's urbanizing, and you don't have the ability to know how to even like buy a coffee or go to the market and buy something, you all of a sudden you've just been missed out. Or on the inverse of that, selling. How do I sell now? Because I'm not taking cash anymore. People aren't selling me in cash. How do I register a bank account? How do I set up a bank account? All of these things. These have all become not just like life skills, but digital skills that they have to learn too, and how to navigate. There's also safety, prevention from scams and things like that. So we're trying to enable them to at least have the baseline skill set to understand this is how this phone works. This is how safety on the phone works.
This is very basic.
Very basic, very basic. And then we have an English program too, because English learning unlocks opportunity for jobs in markets like Phnom Penh, right? You can earn a higher paying job if you learn English. You have more opportunity in front of you. Just because Khmer is not obviously a language that's used regionally. ASEAN, the region that we're in, English is the working language for the region.
Really?
Yeah. It's the common working language officially for the ASEAN working.
So like in your office, you speak in English?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, the Cambodians will speak Khmer to each other, but 90% of our engagement is in English. Yeah. And that's been one of the things that I think the market opportunity in Cambodia is really good. And I've always said this is Cambodians' ability to learn English and use it is much better than the neighboring countries like Thailand or Vietnam.
Why do you think that is?
I think in Thailand and Vietnam, there's been a strong, obviously, nationalization of like their languages and products and things like that. Because of the genocide here, I think they didn't have that coming out of it. UN came in, working language was either English or French. This was a French colony at one point too. So I think a lot of that was just, it was available to them. They saw that there was opportunity to learn English and they took to it. And then it just became prioritized that they saw that people who could speak English could make more. And I think there is a strong English learning component to what a lot of Cambodians do, at least in the city.
And I have. So got it. Yeah. And so what do you see like kind of the future of Cambodia? And by the way, how are you on time?
I'm fine.
Why don't you tell me how much more we want to go with, and I'll tailor to that.
Okay. I probably have 15, 20 minutes left.
15. Yeah. Let's go 15.
Okay.
Yeah. Perfect. Now let's kind of, I guess kind of looking at present and future. Mm-hmm. What are you hopeful, or what are you kind of worried about like in Cambodia?
Yeah. This is one of the fastest growing markets in the region right now. Economies. I think there's a lot of opportunity ahead of Cambodia. There's a lot of opportunity for job creation. I think there's a lot of opportunity for different industries to come here. I think there's a lot of opportunity, especially in the tech space. It's a young tech market. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in those spaces. Because of a lot of Cambodians' ability to learn English, I think they'll be able. Market opportunity needs to expand beyond here. It's a small country, right? And so they need to be able to work regionally. And I think they can very easily. My concerns are, I think that the wealth gap, the disparity gap is expanding too rapidly. And so you have a very high concentration of very poor people, a huge gap, and then a lot of wealth. Like there really isn't like what you and I might, coming from the States, might expect of like the traditional middle class, right? And while there is a middle class, it tends to sit on both extremes, right? So there's just a huge, that wealth gap is increasing between the rich and the poor here. And
Yeah, why is that concerning for you?
it just continues to, I mean, the wealth is created at the expense of the poor, right? And so, you have issues of like land rights issues and land grabbing. You have lots of basic human rights issues still to overcome in that regard. And so, that causes a lot of challenges in terms of like, how do we get the lower middle class and poor communities to be able to enjoy and move up in that income level, right? How do we find space for them to participate in the economies of the future?
When you say that, are you talking about the rural versus urban, or are you talking even with
Even within Phnom Penh? Yeah, even within Phnom Penh, urban poor too, right? There's a lot of urban poor, and you look at globalization and all of that, right? Like one of the largest, might still be the largest market here is garment manufacturing, right? And so, a garment manufacturer minimum wage is $165 a month, maybe somewhere in there. So, you're talking about that as one of your largest markets at the moment, right? Because you have a large percent of the population on a very little income. And so how do you create market opportunities for them to grow their wealth and income for their families?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. It's like there's from the kind of the, I guess, maybe the moral perspective of wanting, there's all these riches, like, yeah, and to have someone who lives in a nice air-conditioned whatever condo and someone who's slum, like, so yeah, how can we, the equality-wise, like, I think there's another element of societal rest or kind of law and order kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where I think, by the way, I have not, this is just like my theory, but I think within a society, if you do have a big gap between the wealthy and the poor, there's going to be social unrest. Like there's going to be like, what the heck, this is unfair. And there's more kind of, if you want stability, I imagine that you kind of need this normal distribution curve of like big middle class and kind of streams on the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you would. I can't say too much more on that, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Since we're both in the tech field,
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
Let's talk about AI.
Okay.
What are your thoughts about AI, how it pertains to Cambodia?
Okay, so I have used AI from early stages. I was like a advocate of it early on. Do you want to wait a minute?
No, it's fine.
The mic still cover? Okay.
So you're talking about like ChatGPT and stuff.
Yeah, and even before that, I was into kind of machine learning systems and things like that. Right? Really looking at like how do we build machine learning systems. I wrestle with it a lot. So we use it a lot at work. A lot of AI kind of assists our developers code things. So we use things like Cursor and Claude to kind of, do that. We use Gemini to do like code reviews and write tests and things like that for our code. So on one hand, it's very helpful. But on the other hand, like we're wrestling right now with like, what does the new role look like for a junior software developer, right? Like we mentioned this earlier about the critical thinking piece. I was like, if we're outsourcing thought to the AI, do we ever really learn the skills that have us question and challenge when that could be wrong? And from my experience right now, what I'm having to coach what we're coaching a lot of the juniors on is they don't know the right questions to ask in order to know if what they're getting is good or bad, right? Because AI right now hallucinates sometimes, right? It kind of goes, maybe it loses context and goes off the rails. So what we're trying to do is like, okay, like how do we still build that skill set while at the same time enabling them on the AI side to understand that this is the tool that they're going to use in the future anyway, right? But they still have to have the critical thinking piece. They still have to be able to understand how a system is built, how libraries are incorporated, how code is structured, what a code review looks like, and how to ask good questions about the code. And so this is a huge challenge we're having at the moment with AI.
How do you think that this impacts education and how you educate the next generation?
Yeah, and this is one that I'm not entirely sure what we do yet, because AI is going to be embedded in a lot of things in the future for young people, right? And
I mean, I think it's the same thing with like what you said about the rural population. They don't know how to use AI.
Yeah.
How can you show up somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think what we're going to need to figure out is how do we teach really good critical thinking skills outside of the fundamental knowledge of I know X, right? Because when I was going through school, it was a lot of like, you need to learn X, right? Memorize stuff, even math and equations and things like that, right? I think all the time, I remember one of my math teachers saying, you'll never have a calculator on you wherever you go, right? Jesse, how are you going to live life? Like you need to memorize this stuff, right? And, obviously she couldn't predict the iPhone would be in everyone's pocket or anything, but that's the way technology works, right? So how do we prepare people to have these critical thinking skills, to understand and ask the right questions? I think that's going to be one of the fundamental challenges for educators going forward is like, how do we enable a generation of people who have more knowledge than anyone's ever had before them at their fingertips, still think critically about these things?
How would you define to think critically?
AI systems are created by people. They carry the inherent biases of the people that created them as well as the information they're trained on, right? That will be forever true until we get to a place where maybe we have fully functioning, like truly artificial intelligence.
AI is like, I got it.
Yeah, I got it. But even then, I still believe that at that point, it still would carry some of the inherent biases of the creator of that system, right? So we need a generation of people that know how to ask and challenge the responses that are given, right? Like we can't just accept everything that an AI gives you at face value. Even now, some of this stuff is filtered out, right? Even now, depending on if you use DeepSeek versus ChatGPT, some of it's censored, some of it is not, all right? Like those carry things. And so making sure that young people aren't just like accepting whatever is output, right? It's like the early days of Wikipedia when your teachers or professors used to say you can't quote Wikipedia, right? Because it's not like anyone can update the internet, right? It's not real. So it's kind of that thing again of like, how do we still create a group of people that can ask good questions and challenge things? And then I don't know how we build deep knowledge into subjects. I think maybe people will be more personally interested in something, so they dive deep on a subject, right? But we still are going to need experts, and I'm concerned that are we going to have deep experts in fields at a certain point, or will that just slowly start to fade away too, of like deep inherited knowledge of a particular topic? And that's before we even get into the ethical implications of like how AI was trained in the first place. And like, is it ethical for AI to be used in ways that duplicate artists and creators' work? That's a whole nother area that I'm wrestling with at the moment too.
I think like the interesting thing I've been lately thinking about AI is that, we look at the Industrial Revolution, and the people who were the rich people were the factory owners, but they also, to create a factory, they had to have capital. They had to be rich. Also, only the rich became richer.
Yeah.
Within the AI world, AI Industrial Revolution, I think the cost has gotten so low, and the barrier to entry has just lowered, has become so low that any person, like, we don't know who the next like trillionaire is going to be. Like, it just happens to be someone who has a great idea, and that person could be sitting on a dirt floor,
right,
learning how to use AI on a cell phone or something. And I think that levels the playing field in one sense. I think the other sense is, let's say that happens in Cambodia, like huge industry comes up, right? $1 trillion company. I wonder though, like normally societies need decades to like adjust. Like I think Korea is a great example. They really urbanize really quickly. They ramp up super fast. But I think there are challenges to that of like classes and how do you deal with wealth and the widening gap and all that stuff. So I imagine with AI it's going to happen faster. It will happen like all of a sudden. And like I think on the face value, it's like, wow, it's amazing. A lot more money will come in. But then it's like, what impact will it have on society for them to kind of adjust to this? It's like someone who just suddenly wins a lotto and becomes rich. Like, how do we do it in a way that really can help society and
Yeah, and I think one thing too is like in the capitalist focused world that we live in, the challenge becomes like, how do you support a country like Cambodia on the AI journey, right? Like, Khmer will not largely be supported. It might be one of the last languages that truly gets good support, right? Because there's not the market opportunity. It's a small population, all of those things. So like, as we're looking at this, it might be a great equalizer, I think, for more developed countries. But then you look at a place like Cambodia and it's like, they'll largely get skipped over if you let the large companies just like continue down the path they're on, because it'll be like Google Translate support, right? Like slowly over a decade has gotten better, but you still wouldn't trust it to like write a good conversation for you, especially in Khmer, right? And so I think that's one of the challenges too of like a country like Cambodia is like, no one's paying attention to it. It doesn't matter in the tech world that way. Like it's such a tiny market that people are like, man, like why would we go through all the cost and effort to invest in that when we're not going to get a return on that side, Bill?
So do you think that leads to the solution of there needs to be experts here in Cambodia, and they have to kind of create their own models? And
they will, and some of them are working on it, but it's going to be a long road. AI models are not easy or cheap to create, and so starting with a DeepSeek or something helps, but like it's going to be a challenge. I think we're going to see a couple tiers in this AI revolution too, of like developed countries markets, and then you're still going to have your undeveloped smaller country markets kind of left out of the conversation unless they're part of a language already, like Spanish or French or something like that, where they can utilize that. But then even smaller than that, we start talking about like indigenous languages. How does AI support indigenous languages and communities that have very small population, even in Cambodia, the small indigenous communities and languages, right? So, I don't have the answers for those, but I think those are all things that we have to consider too.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for this conversation. My final question, because we have like 30 seconds. Or people who are, this may be the first time kind of hearing about Cambodia, about a story of someone coming to Cambodia. If they're like, what would you, if you had a chance to chat with them or say something to them, like what would you share?
I think everyone should come visit Cambodia. I think it is a place unlike anywhere else. The people are wonderful. The community is amazing. There's amazing things to see and do here. It's a great place to come visit and experience yourself. I don't think any video or anything can truly capture Cambodia. And then I would also just say, travel somewhere. Go somewhere out of your comfort zone. Go somewhere you've always wanted to go, but you've never had that chance to do, or you've been too afraid to. Just find a way to go for a week and explore.
And you are a living proof of that, and of someone who can go from a panic attack to now you're here in Cambodia thinking about how you can serve the Cambodian people. Amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, awesome. Appreciate it.
Cheers, bro. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
All right. Peace.